The town called him Cain's Shadow because a second silhouette followed him everywhere. He was 8 feet tall, silent as stone, and his extra shadow moved when he did not. Mothers crossed streets. Children threw rocks. He had not spoken in 10 years. Her name was Iris, and she had been born without sight. Her family abandoned her at a convent, but the nuns taught her to hear, to smell, to feel the world. When she turned 18, they sent her west to be a teacher for blind children. The wagon never arrived. She woke in a cave, wrapped in furs, a fire crackling nearby. A massive hand placed a cup of broth in hers. She heard heavy breathing, then a second breath, and possibly a third. "Who's there?" she asked. A low voice answered, "Me and my brother." He told her his name was Jonas. The other shadow was his twin, born dead, but never gone. The shadow had followed him since birth, a silent companion, cold to the touch. No one else could see it until Iris. She could not see with her eyes, but she could feel. She reached out toward where she sensed the shadow. Her fingers passed through cold air, then met resistance. A hand, icy but solid. She gasped. "He's real." Jonas wept. "No one has ever believed me." The shadow's fingers curled around hers. She stayed. She taught Jonas to trust, to speak, to laugh. The shadow watched, sometimes brushing her hair, leaving frost on her cheek. She learned to communicate with it by touch one squeeze for yes, two for no. It was shy, childlike, lonely. The town discovered where she was and sent a mob to rescue her from the monster. Jonas stood at the cave entrance, his second shadow spreading across the ground like wings. The mob froze. Iris walked out, her hand raised. "He's not a monster. He is a man." She told them about the shadow, about the twin who had never left. Some laughed, some crossed themselves. But the sheriff, an old man with his own ghosts, lowered his gun. "Let them be," he said. The mob dispersed, confused but unwilling to fight a ghost. That night, Jonas asked Iris why she had defended him. She touched his face, tracing his features. "Because your shadow feels sad," she said. "And because your heartbeat is the kindest sound I've ever heard." He kissed her then, and the shadow wrapped around them both. They built a cabin together at the edge of the forest. Iris planted a garden she could smell. Jonas carved her walking sticks with images of birds she would never see. The shadow helped carrying wood, cooling water, leaving frost patterns on the windows. One winter, a blizzard trapped them inside for weeks. Jonas fell ill with a fever, burning hot, delirious. The shadow grew frantic, pacing, chilling the room. Iris prayed. The shadow touched Jonas's forehead, and the fever broke. It had given him its cold. Jonas recovered, but the shadow was weaker now, its edges blurring. Iris understood. "He gave you his life," she whispered. The shadow squeezed her hand one squeeze. Yes, it was fading, choosing to save its twin over its own existence. On the last night of the storm, the shadow stood before Iris, solid for the first time. She could feel its face young, like Jonas, but softer. It pressed its cold lips to her cheek, then dissolved into the firelight. Jonas woke alone, his second shadow gone. He wept for days. Iris held him, saying nothing. But on the third morning, she woke to find a single snowflake on her pillow, perfectly formed, unmelted. She smiled. "He's still here," she said. Jonas touched the flake. It did not melt in his hand. They were married in the spring, in a meadow where the wildflowers grew thick. A cold breeze circled them during the vows, lifting Iris's veil, brushing Jonas's cheek. The preacher shivered. "Is someone else here?" Iris nodded. "Our best man." Years passed. They had children, 2 boys, both with shadows that sometimes moved on their own. The townsfolk called it a curse. Iris called it a gift. "Your uncle is watching over you," she told them. The boys never feared the dark. When Jonas died, old and loved, Iris sat beside his body. A cold hand took her as the shadow returned. It had been waiting. It led her to the window, where a second figure stood in the moonlight. Jonas, young again, translucent, smiling. She touched his ghostly face. "You waited for me," she said. He nodded. She turned to the shadow, now whole and warm. "Thank you for bringing him back." The shadow faded into the light. Iris closed her eyes and followed. They found her body beside Jonas's, holding his hand, a smile on her face. The preacher said a prayer. The town built a single grave for two, with a third marker, a small stone, unmarked, for the shadow that had loved them both. Travelers still report seeing two figures walking in the meadow at dusk, a cold breeze following them. And sometimes, if you are very still, you can feel a third presence, invisible but kind. The mountain remembers the man with two shadows and the woman who saw them all.